Welcome to Legitimate Matters. This is your host, William Parris. Legitimate Matters is a show that is built and designed to inspire my viewers to make the best out of their lives, to make informed decisions. I myself, I've been in my career for now 30 years, and I often try to find ways to develop new streams of income and to try different things. But how do you do that when you've been so familiar with one way of living? How do you launch out on your own? Well, my guest today is Carl Gould. And Carl is a business growth entrepreneur who advises organizations to get to the next level. He has built 3 million-dollar businesses by the age of 40. His consulting firm has mentored and launched over 5,000 businesses in 35 countries. Carl, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, first of all, I want to know how did you even build that much business by the age of 40? What's the formula?
Well, I think part of it was that I got started young, so I had a bit of an early jump on the game, maybe. But I was going to college for accounting and finance, and in the second year of school, I broke my leg pretty badly, and I had to leave school, unfortunately. I spent 3 months in a full length cast, and then another 3 months learning how to bend and use my leg again. But one of the things I learned is that if you're gone from school for 6 months, everyone who you borrowed money from wants it back. All your grants and scholarships go away.
Absolutely.
And you have to start paying all these things back. And so there I was living at home in northern New Jersey, and I had done landscaping in high school, so I decided to start my own business.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was the best decision at the time, but it was the decision I needed to make. And so I started that business, and I learned a lesson on my 3rd appointment that I went out on with a prospect. And I remember hearing the complaint over and over and over again that contractors are not responsive, they don't call back, and they maybe lack the professionalism that some of the people had hoped for. And so the next year I made the promise, I took out a Yellow Page ad, and in my Yellow Page ad it said, all phone calls returned. And so even though it was a tough time in the late 80s, the real estate market wasn't great, I was overrun with requests. I was overrun with phone calls, overrun with inquiries. Okay. And I realized, wait a minute, I might be selling landscaping services, but there's something deeper that my clientele wants. And I realized that there's what we sell, but what is somebody really buying? What are the emotional benefits? What are some of the intangibles of the service that I'm offering? And I learned very early in my career that it's the intangibles that people are buying and are willing to pay more for than the actual utility of the product.
I see.
So if you think about it for a second, I often use the analogy of what would most of society say is a better watch. Okay. A Timex or a Rolex?
Of course.
Well, most people would say a Rolex.
A Rolex,
okay?
Right, sure.
But the utility of the actual utility of the watch is it's a timepiece.
Right.
Time and date, basically, right? There can be some other features, but at the end of the day, it's time and date. Well, if a Timex runs for $100 or so, and a Rolex runs for $5,000 or so, what are you getting for the $4,900 you're paying extra for the Rolex? And most people would claim, well, the status, the prestige, the brand. But those are all intangibles, right? None of those make it tell time better. Right. And none of those make it tell the date more accurately.
Right.
You know? And so as a result, you think about it and you say, what are my customers paying more for? The utility or the intangibles? And I just got a very early lesson early in my career that it's actually the intangibles.
Is that
and when
so?
if you focus on that, you can grow your business very sustainably, and you can grow your business very successfully regardless of the economy that we find ourselves in.
Oh, that's very interesting. Now you have taken that, you've started there, and now you are a business growth expert.
Right.
And you've already given me a little lesson right at the beginning.
Right.
But explain being a business growth expert. What is that? What is that?
Sure. So not every business has the same goal, right? Some businesses are in a stage of life where they want to exit.
Right.
So some are want to just get more efficient or increase their profitability, but they don't necessarily want to grow or expand or get larger in any way.
Right.
So what I do and what our firm does is we provide growth services to companies who want to expand their operations, have more revenue, maybe create more jobs, or somehow increase their footprint, more locations or more products or services. So that's where we specialize.
Do you find that sometimes when you meet a client or you have a particular prospect that they really don't know where they are or what it is that they want to, or where they want to go?
You know, it's a great question because not everybody knows where they want to go necessarily, but they know where the pain is.
Okay, all right.
They have certain, we go to the doctor when we're not feeling well. We
Right.
take our car to the auto mechanic when we hear a squeak. We're not sure what it was, but we said, you know what, I heard a noise. Let me try to explain it to you.
Right.
And we saw those funny commercials with people trying to explain the noises to their auto mechanics. But I categorize owners in two basic ways. They are either somebody who is trying to make a name for themselves. They're still on the upward path, at least they perceive to be.
Sure.
They have somewhat of a growth mentality, and they're still looking to make their mark, whatever that might mean for them. And then there's the owner that I would say is trying not to screw it up. Right?
Okay, all right.
So that could be a family-run business or a second or next generation owner or somebody who has set some initial goals,
Okay.
hit them and said, wait a minute, I don't ever want to go back to the beginning. I've built this profitable, viable business, and I want to make sure that it sustains over the long haul.
It's not broken, so I don't really want to fix it, but I want to make sure that, as you said, it has sustainability.
Exactly, and I want to reduce the risk. I want to keep it going the way it's going, and not like my early go-go days where I was
Right.
willing to do just about anything to make a name for myself. Now I've made my name for myself. Now I want to be a little bit more safer in my approach.
And you've written quite a few books on the matter, as a matter of fact,
Yes.
on the topic.
I have seven books. yeah.
7 books. Well, we're going to go to break, and when we come back from break, we're going to speak to Carl and find out a little more about his books and how we might be inspired by some of the things that he's learned and how he's mentoring other businesses to grow. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Legitimate Matters.
I'm a single mother, and I was the main one working, so I never thought that I could go back to school, My sister, my mother, everybody wanted to help me with my kids. I could not have gotten my diploma without my family.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
When it comes to saving money,
What? Parents!
don't act like a baby.
Oh, it's like they're having their own little meeting. This is so humiliating.
Be the boss
I'm the boss.
What the?
Power nap. You were saying.
and make a budget.
Let's get to work.
Need a little help?
Stacy, read back the notes.
I can't read. What's it say?
Create a personalized savings plan and get other tools and tips
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
at feedthepig.org.
Hi, everybody. This is Carl Gould again, and I was asked to answer the question, what are some common challenges that entrepreneurs face when they're starting a business or launching a new division or a new product of their business? And there's this common misperception that because you're new, you have to give away a lot. Right? You have to make discounts. Now, it's a good strategy, but you don't have to do it. And so what happens, one of the mistakes and some of the challenges that people have is they will undervalue themselves early in the game and give away more than they have to. So for example, when they bring on an investor, they'll say, well, we're not coming from a position of strength, so we'll give some extra points. Or because we're new to this, we'll discount our product or service, or we'll give it away for free. Again, those are some strategies, but some entrepreneurs tend to overdo it, right? And so, you read about why do companies fail, and they say, well, they run out of money. They run out of capital. That's a big reason why. But I think in the beginning, they make management mistakes that are way too expensive. So if you think about this for a second, where you are in your career right now, if you could have back all the mistakes and the cost, the cash that was spent because of those mistakes, how much cash would you have?
Welcome back to Legitimate Matters. Your host, William Parris. I'm here with my guest, Carl Gould. Carl, you were mentioning that you've written 7 books,
Yeah.
and one of them is The Stages of Small Business Success.
Right.
Tell us about that.
So I, back in the early 90s, I started my coaching career.
Okay.
And my professional coaching career. And there wasn't much of an industry at that point.
Okay.
And so if you were to say to somebody, you were a professional coach, they would say, wow, super, what sport? You know?
Okay, right.
And I actually did coach basketball, but more so, I was a business coach and a business advisor. And so because there was not a lot of systems at the time, I was documenting everything that I was doing.
Okay.
What I didn't realize was I was actually writing a methodology for coaching and consulting that I now use in my the growth services.
Okay.
And so we use this very successfully to help launch and mentor the launch of 5,000 businesses around the world.
I see.
And so we've learned a few things about what success looks like in multiple economies and multiple cultures and multiple currencies and with various economic uncertainties or certainties going on at the same time.
Are there any commonalities and best practices for launching a business?
Yeah, it's a great point because it's so funny. The first time I gave this talk outside the United States, somebody said, Carl, this sounds great. But that works in the U.S. That's not for us.
Exactly.
We're so different.
Yeah.
You know, and then I went to Texas, and this sounds great in the North, but it's not going to work in the South. And actually, as a matter of fact, this book, The 7 Stages of Small Business Success, is about all of the universal strategies that work regardless. You know, there's when you're building a business, when you can get all the way to what the emotional benefits of your client are, those are universal.
I see.
Those span race and gender and economic climate, you name it. And you could be, just like Apple can be successful just about anywhere, like Starbucks, just about anywhere, McDonald's, just about anywhere. And they don't vary all that much,
I see.
even though they go to different cultures. So there's a few things that are, no matter who you are, if you're starting a business, if you have this foundation, you can go just about anywhere.
Okay.
And when you first start, if you create a compelling and inspiring strategic plan,
Right.
meaning if you get all these great ideas out of your head and you get them onto paper, and when you look at them, you're inspired and you say, wow, this gives me energy. And if I were to show it to somebody else and they read it and they get excited, you are more than likely on a good track. If you write a boring plan, you have a boring business, you attract boring people, and you're going to need help from some other areas in order to keep going. But if you have an inspired business plan and you have an inspired vision and mission of where you're going, you can, the sky's the limit for that business in any market.
So those would be the prerequisites.
Absolutely, that's where you need to start. As a matter of fact, that's stage 1 of our methodology, strategic planning. Must be inspired. So think of like Tom's shoes.
Okay.
You know, if you buy one, we buy one, and we give it to an underprivileged child. That's a great message anywhere in the world. You know, Starbucks has their ethos water.
Right.
If you buy water from us, we're drilling wells for people that can't access potable water. How can in any part of the world, how could you argue with a mission like that? That's amazing, right? And so that's inspiring to some people. And if you think about it, if you go to buy Tom's shoes, you're going to pay a premium. If you buy Ethos water, you're going to buy a premium. You know, I'm pretty sure I pay more for my Girl Scout cookies for my niece because it's going to a good cause. Okay. I'm sure I can buy a box of those cookies for less than $4 or $5 or whatever they are. You know what I mean? But I'm willing to pay that extra because I'm inspired and compelled by what you're trying to accomplish and what the side benefits of your business are going to be.
If an individual said that they wanted to start a small business or they were thinking of a startup, are some businesses more likely to be successful? And by that I mean sometimes we might be approached where someone says, oh, I've got this great franchise opportunity. That's one opportunity, while someone else says, I'm going to start a social media marketing company.
Right.
They're completely different.
Yeah, you are. And they have their own dynamics.
They have their own dynamics. Yeah. Would the same prerequisites apply to both?
They absolutely do. As a matter of fact, we live in a day and age now where there is an audience for any business.
Okay.
No matter what is it you want to build, no matter how you want to go about it, there's an audience for it. There's 7 billion people on the planet now, 10 billion in our lifetime, and most of the planet is interconnected.
Okay.
And so the question is not, do I have a viable business strategy or a business product? The answer is you do. The question is, can I get it to my ideal client successfully, consistently, and profitably?
I see.
Right? So you hear about these wacky business ideas, and there's a market for that. So the real question to ask is, okay, let's assume the product and service is good. It is. Now, can I get it to my marketplace in an efficient and an effective manner?
And the two books that we have before us, the 7 Stages of Small Business Success and Biz Dev Done Right. Okay, does one transition to the other?
Yeah, so 7 Stages of Small Business Success gives you the overview of the growth cycle and how you grow a business overall.
I see.
And then Biz Dev Done Right is a deep dive into the sales aspect of it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm going to transition someplace else.
Sure.
Now, we have a new president in the office who has an unconventional way of approaching leadership.
Yes.
Okay, and he's made certain promises for his first 100 days. When we come back after break, I want to talk about one particular aspect of those promises and how that affects, small businesses and the economy. Okay, stay tuned. We're going to come right back speaking to Carl Gould, and you're going to find out some ideas and what small business means for your personal life. Stay with us. Legitimate Matters. This is William Parris.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to Legitimate Matters. I'm your host, William Parris. Today I'm speaking with my guest, Carl Gould, who has written 7 books and is talking about startup businesses. He's mentored and coached million-dollar businesses all over the world. But I was mentioning to Carl that with the new president in office who has an unconventional way of doing things, what do you think that Trump means for small businesses?
Well, it's very interesting because his tactic is, let me reduce your tax bracket, which would presumably give you more cash, and let me make it more business friendly. I mean, those are his basic tenets.
Okay.
Want to reduce, want to reduce regulation, and I want to reduce your tax. And we are a consumer economy, which means if you give us money, we'll spend it.
Right.
Right. And if we spend it, what are we spending it on? We're spending it on business. So it's this idea that if we put more cash in the system, the cash will flow. All right, and that's what makes a healthy economy. The cash will flow. So it would seem as though his policies would lead to more business startups and more business growth. And if there's more cash in the system, businesses will be more likely to invest in their own operations.
I see. Okay.
Meaning, so if we have the money, we will spend it, and we will spend it on our on more employees, on more hardware, on more materials. Now, conversely, if you make it more expensive for me to do business, then I'm not going to necessarily slow my growth, but I'm going to outsource offshore. Because if you tell me I have to pay somebody $15 an hour for a $12 an hour position, my finances say that I've got to spend $12 an hour. So where do I find that person? If I can't find them here, I'm going to find them there. And so his policies are trying to keep things at home and make it easier for us as small business owners to do that. So it really should stimulate the economy, and it should at least stimulate the confidence that we go out and spend more. If we go out and spend, we will have more money in the economy, and that would be very good for small business.
So this sounds like a potentially winning plan.
It should. I mean, as long as the regulations aren't too tight.
I see.
So because the nice thing about owning a small business, and 98.6% of all small businesses, or all businesses, have under 20 employees.
Okay.
Which means that it doesn't take a lot to make a big difference in a small business in their operations. If they can save an extra $500 per month, $1,000 per month, that makes a big difference.
It does, yeah, absolutely,
right?
sure.
And in a larger business, you wouldn't notice that as much. But in a business with 20 or less employees, that's a receptionist at the front desk part-time.
Absolutely.
That's hiring that social media agency and to promote your business. So a little bit goes a long way. And we live in a world now where we have 27.5 million registered businesses in the United States. That is a staggering amount.
That's staggering, yes.
It's the largest amount ever in the history, and 96% of all of those businesses will do $1 million or less in annual revenue. So if you think about it, it's the heart and soul of our economy. It's the most people out there. And again, the tiniest little improvement to their financial condition makes a huge difference.
Well, he's also promised to create 25 million new jobs through massive tax reductions. Does what you just mentioned tie into the new jobs as well, or are they completely separate?
Well, let's be clear. He is not going to create any new jobs.
Okay.
He will not hire anybody.
Right.
And I'm sure we all know that.
This is true.
But the small business owner will then go and hire somebody. So think about it. There's 27.5 million registered businesses in the United States. If they hired one more person, there's your 25 million.
There you go. Okay.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Okay.
Now, how do you know if you're going to make create 25 million more jobs? That sounds like a big number. But if you break it out and you spread it out among the small businesses around the country, if half of them hired one more person, that's 13.75 million new jobs. 13.75 million new jobs. So it sounds reasonable.
Okay, so going back to startup businesses, what is your feeling in terms of the types of businesses that have longevity, considering the new administration, considering climate control, technology? Do you feel that some types of businesses make more sense than others for just, as I said, longevity down the road?
Sure. Well, if we're talking about a small business, if we're talking about that business under $1 million, which is 96% of all businesses, a lot of the global issues we're talking about will never affect them.
Okay.
I mean, if the Affordable Care Act raised your premium, $212, did that really change your life last year? Probably not. Did it make it inconvenient? Was it a little harder for you? Sure, it was. However, did it really change your ability to have a sustainable business? I don't think so. The reality is that you can hustle your way to $1 million business in any climate.
Okay.
Right? Now, you can get to that point. What makes it sustainable is more of an internal thing. Meaning, internally, if you create the systems that replicate what you did to get to $1 million, then that would be very valuable. So, Donald Trump gets a hard time now that he's president, and he has his very unique leadership style that we don't always take what he says seriously at times or literally. But he had a great quote that he said when he wasn't a politician. And he said, when somebody asked him, should you be a model of what I should follow to be a successful businessman? And he said, you could, but don't use me now as your role model. Use me 30 years ago when I was the guy who got up early, worked all day long. Use what got me here as your role model. He goes, now I'm a billionaire and I go to Mar-a-Lago, and you couldn't necessarily do that, but There were times when I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning calling banks all around the world to be at my office by 7 a.m. so I can meet with my contractors. And then in the afternoon, he goes, model that. Don't necessarily model where I'm at now. And the reality is you can, through hard work ethic, you can make it in any economy. The challenge is systematize. Systematize and make sure that you're not inventing the wheel every day. So if there's a way that you answer your emails every single day, at some point you train somebody else to do that email the same way. Or get the mail or produce the product. At some point you turn it over to another resource, whether internal or outsourced, in order to replicate that over and over again. That's where sustainability comes in.
In the next 30 seconds, look into the camera and tell my viewers 3 strong recommendations for kickstarting their way to starting their own business.
Kickstarting the way. So here's what you do first. First thing is you have to have an idea that is so compelling that you say, I want to give this my all. And then you have to burn the bridges. I did this, you need to do it too. You need to burn the bridges and say, I'm going to make this no matter what. Because what inspires somebody is another person who's willing to go for it no matter what. And then you cannot take no for an answer. There is a market for your product or service. You have to be willing to get somebody to say yes and be more committed to that than they say no. Thirdly, you have to watch, the language of business is accounting, okay? And you must know your numbers. You must know your numbers and you know how much you're selling for. You must know how much the profit is. You must know every single cost of your business. And if you can track the numbers as compelling as you go after the client, you'll have a successful startup.
Legitimate Matters. This is William Parris. This has been a great show, and I don't know about you, but I am ready to kickstart and do something different, do something fresh that I'm passionate about. As a matter of fact, Carl, I'm ready to write my inspiring business plan.
I can't wait to read it.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Once again, Legitimate Matters, William Parris, and always, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Legitimate Matters. This is your host, William Parris. I want to thank my guest, Carl Gould, for being a guest on the show this week. My guests in upcoming weeks include Dr. Raja Sahori, wellness expert and founder of Above and Beyond Holistic Wellness Center. Also coming up will be Alicia Stobie, mortgage expert, licensed loan originator, and #1 best-selling author, How to Get Approved for the Best Mortgage. And also Lisa Lieberman-Wang, public speaker, relationship expert, and #1 best-selling author of the book Fine to Fab. For more information on Legitimate Matters and upcoming shows, follow me on Facebook.com/Legitimate Matters, or email me with questions at wparris, and that's Parris, Parris, @legitimatematters.com.